And the rats, I met rats before, outside of New York, but I didn't really have a relationship with rats before New York, and if you like them down on the tracks, you're going to love them up on the platform. And they really come in a lot of varieties of sizes, but more than the size, it's really their sort of insouciant New York ennui. The way that these rats have seen everything, They've seen everything. When they look at you, they look right through you. They just look at you like... What's up? About a year later, the MTA is rebuilding their headquarters. They're rebuilding the whole building, their headquarters, when they discover that they are 600% over budget. Which, as an aside, is apparently the number that actually triggers a probe at the MTA. Like, if it's 300 or 400%, they're like, what the fuck, just keep going. But if it's 600%, they're like, okay, let's check into it. So, they're 600% over for the entire building, but the overage is almost entirely just in the lobby. It's all being spent in the lobby. And the lobby has actually been subcontracted out to someone from my neighborhood. It's been subcontracted out to Alex Filiola Construction. And Alex Filiola Construction is doing the lobby in marble. They're doing it in imported Italian marble. They're doing it in imported Italian marble that Alex Filiola himself is flying twice a week to Italy on the Concorde, apparently to hand carve. I can only assume he's hand carving each slab, he puts them in carry-on baggage, he's bringing them back, he's hand installing them, and as you might imagine, that shit gets expensive. And the very best part of getting a book deal is that moment. It's the moment you get a book deal and then you can tell people, I have a book deal. That's the best part of the book deal. The next best moment comes shortly after that, and that's when you receive the first check, because you can cash that check for money, which can be exchanged for goods and services. After that, things really start to go downhill quickly, because you will be expected to turn in a book, and you can't just turn in any book. You have to actually write that book yourself. I had a plan that I thought of as my John Irving plan, and the plan was simple. I would arrive in New York alone. Jean Michel would stay behind for a while and come later, so there'd be no distractions. And I would rent a room, kind of a hovel, and I thought in this room there would be a little desk and a tiny bed and perhaps a bare light bulb on a wire. It would swing to and fro, and I would sit at the table and I would open my laptop, and then I would write. But I did not write. I did not write. Instead, I sweat. I sweated in the most profound way that I have ever sweated in my life. I sweated until it became a religious experience. Way past spa, way past sauna room. Everything inside my body is coming out of my body. I didn't even know that was possible. I am not writing a book. The only way I'm writing a book is if there's a book actually inside of me. You know what people say? Oh, there's a book inside of you. Well, if there is, it's coming. All he wants to talk about is Iraq, because he's afraid that we're going to go to war in Iraq. Because my dad works as a therapist for the Veterans Administration, and he knows that when the government's done with those kids, he's going to see them. He's going to see them next, and he's really, really worried about that. And it's funny, because when I was a kid growing up in Maine, my friends, their fathers sometimes lose their jobs at the mills, and when that happened, every time, the family always went to shit. Every time. And I got really worried. Like, what would happen if my father lost his job? I really worried about that. And I noticed, that all the veterans, my father's friends, they're all Vietnam veterans, and they're all, like, getting older. And so I really got worried, like, what's going to happen if my father, runs out of veterans? And I actually asked him once. I actually said, Dad, what's going to happen if you run out of veterans? And I'll never forget, he laughed and said, "Oh, Michael, that's never going to happen."